Good morning, everyone. How are you? Did you have a good evening?
Ma'am. Yes.
No, you all went straight to bed right out. It's in the light. Yeah, I bet. Okay, this session is on communication skills. What we're gonna we present the standard we've already seen. So we'll give a quick introduction. We'll talk about what the learning objectives are, what are the outcomes I hope that you'll walk away with, and then actually presentation and conclusion. There's a lot of interaction in this particular session. So if you don't participate voluntarily, then I will help you by selecting you. So don't forget to raise your hand because you might get selected. So the first thing we want to do is talk about the objectives. We'll go through the components of both verbal and written communication. We'll talk about nonverbal, the paraverbal cues that you can use to help emphasize your message. We'll talk about the components of a personal statement. You heard how important that was in starting with knowing who you were or are, I should say. And so we will end with a lot of participation throughout and in the end of the presentation. Over outcomes, I would like to have you walk out of here knowing the importance of understanding the components of both written and verbal communication, and more importantly, how to use it and understand that it all takes practice. Writing is rewriting. Speaking is practicing, whether it's in front of a mirror, whether it's in front of your peers, but it takes practice. Okay. And anytime during the presentation, if there are questions, please feel free to ask. If there are any doubts, there are any questions, confusions. So let's start with the definition of communication. And the first one talks about it's an act of transmitting. The second is how do you transmit that information? It could be verbally, it could be in writing. It also, you could be in sign language, right? Finally, it's a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common. Notice that the word common is bolded. I will ask about this later. System of symbols, signs, and behaviors. So a lot of you are in civil engineering. Some of you are in business. So generally speaking, we know what that $ means, right? If you see a stop sign and it's that certain shape, it's red, it has the word stop. If you went to another country and you saw the same shape sign, but it's an alto, and you didn't know what that meant. But you really do know what it means, don't you? Because it's a common symbol. It's something that you know, that's what it means. Similarly, the $. Okay? So what are the components of verbal communication? First of all, it's who's your audience? Who are you talking to? I knew when I came here, I was going to be talking to students who fortunately or unfortunately are required to be here. So I don't make the presentation somewhat entertaining and interactive. You may not be very interested in what I have to say. So I knew who my audience was. And I have to listen. What's being said? Well, I'm being told that this is the skill that they would like to have you lead with. So you have to know who your audience is. Listen. What's the question that's being asked of you? Then, what words are you going to use? How are you going to communicate? What words are you going to use? You have to think about one. What was the question? Who's my audience? Is there a difference if I'm speaking to the dean of the college or my peers, there's a different way that we communicate. So, who's your audience? What are they asking? And what's your message? What are you going to say to them? What's your response? All right. Then these are the key things in the presentation in verbal communication. The nonverbal communication, paraverbal. I don't know if you've ever heard those terms before, but what we're talking about is tone, pace, right? And inflection. So a lot of you realize when you have a question, what do you do? Did you get it? What did you do? There was a little lift in that last word, do. That's actually putting a question mark at the end of my sentence. So those types of cues are very important because sometimes you may say something and use the wrong tone. 55% of verbal communication, 55% is body language. So when I ask you a question, you'll notice my hands are also moving, partly because I want your attention on me when I'm speaking.
I have a question about the last slide. Out of those five, we think is the most important, and what was the hardest for you to learn to get better at?
I'm a natural talker, so speaking isn't as difficult for me. I think sometimes what I have difficulty with is the pitch and the tone of my voice. Well, in the old days when you actually answered your house phone, frequently, for some reason, I'd answer the phone, hi. And the first words out of their mouth were, okay, speak to your mother. I'm going, oh, I am not only the mother, I am the grandmother. So, I have to learn how to control that pitch. Also, sometimes when I'm speaking at a group, I start speaking a little faster because I'm nervous. Even though I've given this session prior, I still get nervous, so I speak faster. So I think for me, it was the tone, pitch, pace. Now, I'm not picking on any country or anybody specific, but students, I have noticed that are from Puerto Rico. When they introduce themselves, they speak very fast. So one, if you are from a country or not native, your name is different than the standard all-American John, Bob, Amy, Fred. If you don't say your name clearly and slowly, the individual, your audience will not get it. What do you try to do? You want them to remember you. So those are the things body language, I'm pretty comfortable with. And I'm pretty good at reading body language. For example, a couple of years ago when we did our session on Zoom, you forget when you're on the camera and it's a Zoom meeting, I can still see you. So if you're eating an energy bar while I'm speaking, I'm kind of feeling like I'm not their priority. Or if you're slouched down in your seat. So if I was giving this talk and I was standing here going, well, what we're going to talk about today is communication skills. Do I look very enthusiastic? Not. Do I look like I really care? No. I have a grandson who started working and he happens to be working in produce. And somebody came out to him and said, I don't like your job. My grandson, I love it. I think it's great. And the response he got was, oh, great. And the person walked away. So when the person said, oh, great, were they really meaning, oh, great? If they gave the eye roll and the quick body turn, the message wasn't, oh, great. The body language, 55% of communication. So here's another example. I'm the parent. You're the child. And I come up to you and I say, did you study last night? Did you study? What if I come up to you and I go, did you study last night? Or how about if I came up and did you study last night? Did you study? What's your response? Okay, what are those two messages? What are those three messages saying? Right? But here, let's see if I can do that.
I did study hard last night. I did study hard last night. I did study hard last night.
So, can I just hit that again? Will it repeat?
Yeah, if you use the mouse that's on the podium.
I use the mouse that's on. This isn't gonna, here, help. But even in that short demonstration, sorry. You should have seen me calling her every other day when we did this on Zoom.
I did study hard last night. I did study hard last night.
You can stop. Okay. What are the messages there? One was sort of, I'm defensive, I did. The other one was really whiny. If you're a parent, you know what that whining means. So that is how some of the pitch and the tone are so crucial, and the body language. And 55% of your communication is body language. Appearance, why do you think we said, come to the conference? It's a professional conference. We want you to wear business casual because first impressions matter. Within the first 10 seconds, I or you have made some judgment about me, and I have made some judgment about you. Right or wrong, we've made it just because of the way you appear. Now, location is distance. How close do you get to somebody when you're speaking? So one of the things I like to talk about, and I'm going to throw this in, it's not anywhere on the slides, is when you network, which you were asked to do. We were asked to move from different tables, so you didn't sit with the same person. As part of being at a conference is networking and getting to know different people. Okay, but when you're introducing yourself to somebody, for example, at some kind of meeting, do you walk up to them and let's have this? So if you walk up to him, being real short, this is real hard. So you go, my name is Amy, or going, my name is Amy. Bashir, or, and where does that name originate from?
My mom said the Bible that she mixed it up a little.
She mixed it up a little. Interesting. Okay. So body language. The other thing is, notice I put my hand up first, so he did respond with a handshake. But what if you go up to somebody, put your hand up, they don't do anything? You know, like, what do you do there? Well, you can sit. Sure. You know, sometimes in this day and age, we do fist bumps, elbows. You're not quite sure. So if you do put your hand out and they don't respond, don't be offended. You might, if you feel comfortable enough, say, mind fist bump. Or, you know, it is an awkward time when it comes to that body language of the handshake, the introduction. They make sure there's eye contact. I'll share a story because he's long gone. I had a dean, bless his heart, worked with the dean for years. He could not look you in the eye. So his focus was right about here. That's okay if you're talking to a man. But if you have female faculty and you're always staring at their chest, the message is going out because somebody is not looking me in the eye. I had to explain to him there about body language, about eye contact. It didn't improve that much, but at least he was aware of what he was doing and how he may offend people. So eye contact is very important. Oh, we talk about physical distance. If you get too close to somebody and they start backing away a little bit for whatever reason, COVID, right? You don't want to get too close to anybody. So you're backing away. Don't take offense. It just is, you are in their personal space. All this is around, facial expressions. I like this because you can tell a lot. If I'm looking at the audience and people are going, the head tilt, barrels and wrinkles. I have a lot of wrinkles to begin with, so I don't count. But you're wondering, gee, am I not communicating? What's going wrong with this dialogue here? So facial expressions are critical, and then physical contact. I'm a hugger and a toucher, and I introduce myself to some of the students here. And if I go up and say, oh, hey, what school are you from? Tennessee State University. But if I feel attention, so this is where you do have to practice. If you feel tension, when you do that, you know that maybe you say, well, I'm sorry, did that bother you? Or some people are huggers. So, if I give you a hug and somebody goes like this, that was not comfortable. So you do have to back off and not totally apologize, but you say, oh, I'm sorry if that was uncomfortable for you. All right. And let's see. So body language, voice, that's pitch, tone, and the words that we're going to use. Okay. I'm going to move this. So the other thing I wanted to mention, which is not in our official session, is during networking, along with being able to communicate and going up, giving that 30-second interview of who you are, used to be called the 30-second elevator speech. So you got into an elevator and you're going up to the next floor and you're standing next to somebody who has an ottoman. And they're willing to give it. How are you gonna, and they say, oh, what's your name? What school do you go to? We can't say, well, I go to, and I'm majoring in, and I'll be graduating, I think, in June. Shows lack of thought, lack of confidence in who you are and what you're doing. So that 30-second kind of commercial about yourself. If you think about it, you can say, like I did not do in the introduction, because I didn't give an introduction of who I was. I would say usually, oh, hi, my name's Amy Maki. I'm the founder and president of Maki Associates. We focused on developing human capital. Maybe the audience would say, nice introduction for me to tell them about what I do and what my background is. All right, so 30 seconds. We think that you can, if I gave you a few seconds, write a 30-second elevator speech about yourself. Let's say the audience is the dean of the College of Business, Engineering, Okay, I'm gonna give you a few seconds. Write a 30-second little elevator speech about yourself. We'll get you started on this. Okay, this is just practice. Remember, practice makes perfect. So let me just call on somebody and just tell me what you've written. Tell me what you've written so far. Stand up. That's the way I do it, because sitting down, I'm the boss. If you sit down and I stand up, who has the power?
My name is Anius. I'm a senior in the college. Major in computer engineering.
Okay. My pace was nice, articulated his name. He could have spoken a little louder, but if I was standing right next to him, I would have been fine. So how about you?
And putting it off, it was up first. I want to be doing
So interesting. So are you thinking of that school? In grad school in general. Good answer. She knows who the audience is, right? Thinking of grad school. Okay, very nicely done. Not only that, because your name is not, I'm not the name standard. I named my daughter, one daughter is Tama, T-A-M-A, and you know that all through school she had to explain that. The other one is Mika. She had to always explain that, but it was clearly articulated. So that's the important part. And so the pace was good. She wasn't nervous about it. She may have thought she was nervous, but she presented herself very well. All right. So again, let's just summarize. In verbal communication, first thing is, who is the audience? Right.
Whoever you're speaking to.
And I'm sorry.
Whoever you're speaking to.
Right. Whoever you're speaking to, who is that audience? Okay. What are they asking of you? Are they just asking you to listen? Then you're quiet. Are they asking you a question? Then what exactly are they asking? Third, what is your response? What's your message? What do you want them to know? Words matter. So what words you use are critical. Important are paraverbal communication cues. So volume, pitch, pace. Those are the other cues that you need to consider when presenting or speaking, right? And the last thing was, what's the most important thing in verbal communication? It's 55%, but body language, right? So very important. Now, you think, well, so what's the difference between written and verbal as far as the components? Well, surprisingly, there's not much difference until we get to the last item. So, same thing. Are you responding to an admissions committee? Are you responding to a committee in which you're requesting funding? Who is asking you the question? And then, what is the question? Are they asking you to tell them about you personally? Are they asking you to talk about your research? What are they asking you? Then what is your message? What do you want them to know about you? Okay. Now, you don't have an opportunity to use your body to demonstrate certain things. You don't have your voice to articulate your response, but you do have your words. Words matter. And more importantly, you have punctuation, word usage, grammar, and format. Remember, one of the speakers said yesterday that she sent out resumes and nothing happened. And she gave her resume to a friend and they said, oh, I think you should reformat it a certain way. And she got invitations to apply for jobs, or she even accepted a job. So there's two messages in that. One is the reason you're here is because you're networking, right? And she used her network to help her resolve a problem that she thought she had. She couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting a job. So the person told her about the formatting of her resume. Now, the one thing that is not on this slide is after the word formatting, I added the word emoji. So let's just take a look at this. You know, and everybody knows what these are, right? This cute little pictures that you put on things, and you make the assumption that everybody understands what they mean. In that definition of communication, what was the word that was bolded? Common. Okay, we talked about the stop sign. And we've talked, I didn't mention this, there are some things that, the assumption that, let me just rewind here. So there are common symbols, but they aren't so common. So for example, tell me what this means. Anybody, tell me, what is that? What does that pinch finger mean? Nobody knows?
Like,
I just did. No, tell me what that means.
Digital is like out there, like,
Think about it, like, wait.
Like what?
Wait,
Wait,
yeah.
okay, she thinks of it as wait.
If I'd have to guess, I feel like it means that specification, like being specific.
Okay, so according to the experts on emojis, they, whoever they are, you know, there is a body of experts. So one of the things it means, and I don't know who's into K-pop music, because it isn't me, but in K-pop music, that is some kind of a sign of, oh, love, it's cute, whatever. Okay. My friend's a school teacher. When she goes up to her elementary school children and goes, what is she telling them to do? Water, pay attention. Okay. And in Italy, it's, what do you want? What do you want? So how common is that? Not too common. So you have to be very careful and using them. And when you do use them, try not to use them in the middle of a sentence because it breaks up the whole continuity of that thought. You want to put it at the end, fine. Where do you use emojis? Do you use them on your research papers? I don't think so. Do you use them on your personal mission statement? Not very likely. Not in the lab reports, not in scientific articles. You have punctuation, word usage, grammar, and formatting to get your message across, not emojis. And during the basketball season, somebody sent me an emoji with a picture of a bear with an arrow going down. I had no clue what that meant until I asked her, and she said, well, at the University of Arizona, we say bear down cats. I'm going, bear down cats. It's a bear and a, okay. So if you have to start explaining yourself, then you lose that communication, that direct line, okay? So commonalities in written and verbal communication, both. Who's your audience? What are they asking? What are they saying? Okay, what is it? What is it that you want to communicate? What is your message? And finally, word usage. Things that are different, obvious, one's verbal, one's written. One uses pace, tone, body language to get the communication across. One is using grammar, punctuation, formatting. Now, in written communication, you can accomplish the same things about pace, and with different words, change the tone. The sentences you use can set the tone. But remember to use the punctuation correctly. So when I talked about pace, you can have pace in your writing. What does a comma mean? It means, I want you to just pause a second before we go on to the next thing and the next thing. What does a colon mean? It says, hey, stop. There's some things following this colon that I want you to pay attention to. So there are ways in writing that you can set the pace of your piece. Okay. One of the key things I want you to remember is subject-verb agreement. If you are not a native speaker of English, there are writing centers, you have peers, you have a network of people that you can send things to that they can review for you. Writing is rewriting, and everyone needs help. Dr. Adams was mentioned earlier. He and I have been colleagues for 45 years. Who reads all his documents before they're published? Who takes a look at the grammar? I can guarantee it's not his wife. It's me. And you will have me, if you want, to review some of your documents. I am not an engineer, so if you give me a technical document, I'll be able to look at formatting and the use of grammar, but I won't be able to help you with any of the technical issues that may be embedded in your document. Okay? And I'm going to skip back for a moment, rerun. When we go back to that networking part, I forgot to mention another way of communication is you all have these little things. Well, the back of mine, I have my business cards. All of you should have a business card. And when I get a business card, thank you. Ben, right? Dr. Ben, because his last name is hard for me to pronounce. I could just stick it in the back here. But when he handed me this, what did I do? I handed him a reply. And you're saying, well, I'm an undergrad. What am I going to put on the business card? What you're going to put on the business card is, so now, and some of the universities allow you to use their logo. Some do not. But you could always put your name, post date of graduation, your major, possibly your interest of study for your doctorate, and then phone number or your EDU email, whatever you want to use. But you all should have this wherever you go. You never know who you're going to run into. And you want to make sure that they know who you are. So let me just put that back into my tag here. I didn't want you to leave without that. So we're talking about written communication. And one of the things that you heard during this session, but how important was to have a personal mission statement. Not a personal mission, a personal statement. Now, a personal statement focuses on who you are, what your qualities are. Sometimes that includes some things on research, but more importantly, what's your character? And you have to remember who your audience is. So if you're applying to grad school, is this to the department chair who will understand a lot of technical terminology? Is it to the general admissions committee? And the key component, important part of a personal mission statement is the introductory paragraph, because it is the one that's going to grab the reader and say, hey, I want you to read on. I want you to read more about me. Do you remember Dr. Meese said that she has a statement that sort of has guided her, that she wanted to create opportunities where people could be the best that they can be, right? So I have a personal mission statement that says, I want to create spaces where strangers feel comfortable. I have a mission statement that says, in order to do that, I have to know, I have to understand, and I have to, because I can have all the knowledge on something, and I can really care and understand it. But if I don't put it to use, then to me, excuse me, then to me, it's useless. And then you say to yourself, well, never thought about what my core values are. Personally, I have a core value that's written F to the fourth power equals hope and happiness. And the 4 F's are faith, family, fitness, both physical and financial, and friendship. And those are the things that guide me. And if needed, I sometimes use those in a job interview. Well, who are you?
Can you repeat that for me again? You said.
My mission statement, my vision statement that guides the overarching activity is I want to create space for strangers to come. My mission is to know, to care, understand, and to act. And the 4 F's are faith, family, fitness, both physical and financial, and friendship. And I didn't do an introduction about myself, but part of that would have been, I'm really interested in fitness. So I usually get up in the morning at 4:15. I'm at the gym, I lift weights, I do Zumba, kickboxing, cycling, all those activities for that part. Financial, I've been retired for 23 years. I have a home in Seattle. I have a home in Tucson. So that's how I manage that financial and physical. So, and you may have never thought about this. What are my strengths? What do I really believe in? But in order to respond to a lot of the questions you are going to be asked, you have to know thyself. All right, well, how do you find out about yourself if you've never thought about it? Well, you have to begin with a self-assessment. Think about what your core values are. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What life experience that you have that somebody else doesn't? And how has that helped or hindered who you are? Then the important part here is the audience, right? So depending on who you are writing your statement to, or even articulating it, you need to know who the audience is. So how do you find out about yourself? If you've never thought about it. How about begin with a little self-reflection? Wow, what do I really believe in? And then how about my friends or family members? My mentors. Now here's one thing. if you go up to your best friend and say, so, what do you think one of my weaknesses might be? And they say, well, for God's sake, you're never on time. You know, don't get upset. You're asking them a question and they're responding. They're trying to help you out. Right. Well, you're never on time. So maybe one of you might focus on time management. So just saying, when you ask, be ready to receive the information in the manner in which it's presented. Now, somebody is a real smart aleck and usually answer, well, you know, you take it with a grain of salt because you've learned how to read body language and you know if they're serious or not, right? So self-assessment. I said that the introductory paragraph is the one that invites the reader to read on. So it has to be a catchy introduction about who you are. And remember that the personal statement, it's an essay that tells a story about the main character, and the main character is you. You as a student, you as a person, you as a scholar, and you as a future leader. Writing is rewriting. So you will be writing this thing more than once. And when you get critiqued, again, don't get offended. Don't get your feelings hurt. Just take a look at it, rewrite it, and try it again. Okay. I, on the first slide for the introduction, had my email and my phone number. I also have business cards in case anybody wants one. If there's a time when you have a personal statement, and I'm volunteering to do this, and I don't do this free out in the real world. So if you have something you want me to do, in the subject line of the email, you're going to attach your document to say Nancy Scholar. Because if I get something with just your name, I may not respond as quickly. All right. So the barriers we talked about, in both instances, not carefully listening, using idioms, using abbreviations that are not common. Okay. Distractive mannerisms. I didn't mention this, but some of us like to talking, or we're leaning over on one hip. We have our hands on the side. We have all these, mannerisms that we are not aware of. So make sure that you practice in front of the mirror or somebody else so that they can catch some of these mannerisms. Rambling responses are a result of you not thinking through what your response is going to be. And by the time you've rambled on for the first sentence, your audience has shut down. They've quit listening. Errors in grammar are also distractive. Okay. Inappropriate body language, we talked about that, slouching, no eye contact. So if these are the barriers, what do we have to remember to do to get over the barriers? We have to know who our audience is. We have to listen to what is being asked of us. All right. We have to think about the words we're using. We have to think about the grammar, be aware of in verbal communication, proximity issues, all the body language, the paraverbal cues that we have to keep track of. Those are the things that you have to remember. If you want your message communicated to your audience. All right. So practice makes perfect. Writing is rewriting. Know your audience. Clearly understand what is being asked. Think through your response. Respond to what is being asked directly and concisely, no rambling, and then practice. Because what? Practice makes perfect. And writing is what? Rewriting. All right. And when I'm going to finish up, I you. What I should have started out with was the introduction, right? So if you have any questions about me or have anything else to ask, please do. So obviously my name is Amy Maki, and I own and was a founder of a company that works on human development. I also retired from the University of Washington in Seattle. There I was the, how did we get these two? No, you don't get the, you don't have to get evaluated by an faculty.
Oh,
It's not. So I retired from the University of Washington. I was assistant to the dean for 20 years. I then became the director of admissions, and so I know how to read admissions, maybe not in person for 10 years. I was at San Jose State for 2 years, focusing on developing electronic mentoring programs for HBCUs and HSIs, mostly for women in STEM. So we'll get one more. And I will. Oh, okay. Thank you. So we're going to ask you to fill those out. And I also have a handout for you. On the first page, it talks about writing a personal statement. So it gives you some guides, and on the back, a little self-assessment. So you can ask yourself questions about yourself. You don't have to turn this in. So it's all about you.